Thank you all for tuning in. The following is a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people.
Yes, it is I, your humble host, Bill Hatch III, coming to you live from the palatial studios of Bald Spots Productions here in the beautiful city of Malden, Missouri. Joining me from across the time zones, from a more than acceptable, safe social distance, is my guest for today, Steve Bates. How you doing, Steve?
Great, thank you.
Wow. Well, of course, this is another instance when one of my guests has declined to appear, and so we get to have some one-to-one time with Steve here, and it's going to be interesting because he's got a past I'm certainly interested in, especially these days. But my first question that I always ask people is, who are you reading right now?
Oh, that's interesting. I'm reading a lot of nonfiction right now.
Okay.
Authors in the realm of physics and cosmology who are talking
Oh,
about
nice.
some wacky things such as multiple universes, infinite number of
Mhm.
universes, parallel universes, and the realm of consciousness. What makes our minds actually aware of what's going on to the point that we can think and talk and host radio programs and do all the things we do.
Right.
And these are just areas that are, we're just really starting to dive into.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I've heard of two competing theories of the infinite universe and the infinite number of universes. That it's possible that our universe is infinitely large, and that if you traveled far enough, you would find people doing exactly the same things there that they're doing here, like another duplicate Earth with another Steve Bates and another Bill Hatch having a radio conversation. Um,
Yeah, how do we know? We can't know. I mean,
yeah,
there's the
yeah,
mathematicians try and prove these things can or can't happen, and they don't agree. So there's
yeah.
an equally good chance that they're all wrong, and there's some unknown explanation.
Yeah, yeah, that's always a good one. I'm glad I didn't go into mathematics. My sister did, but mostly she teaches students. She teaches more new students how to do their math. So, but yeah, yeah. The consciousness of the mind is another interesting subject. What was the Bozeman brain? I think was what it was called, where a brain that pops into existence thanks to the various rules of chaos, um, and thinks it has a past beyond when it was created, but doesn't know for sure, and questions of, is it really aware, and different things like that. Interesting, and very strange. But the idea that we just all popped into existence at some point in the middle of the end of the universe, and not knowing if we're really real or not.
Yeah, there are some so-called experts who believe that we're in some sort of simulation or
Yeah.
we're living in a hologram and that there's this
Hmm.
actual more real universe out there that we're reflecting in a couple of dimensions. There's a lot of theories out there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you start going through them all, it's just you get to the point where you say, as much as we've advanced, we've had great people like Newton and Einstein and all sorts of fascinating discoveries in
Hmm.
our lifetimes. We may still be only scratching the surface of what the ultimate reality is. I mean, you start trying
Yeah.
to, as a layperson who has always been interested in science and physics,
Hmm.
and you start to get into quantum theory, quantum physics, and you realize, wow, we really don't know yet what's going on.
Yeah. Yeah. It's crazy, the possibilities. mind-boggling to say the least. Um, yeah, and even if we limit our scope to the things we can see here in the world, or we think we are seeing here in the world, um, it even trying to know the reality of events that are taking place here what's really going on. It seems like there's a little bit of a war going on over in the Middle East, and it seems like China might be getting ready to do start World War III, and it seems like all these other things, and it's tough to get a handle on all of it. But you used to try to get a handle on some of those things. See, like my little segue there, my lead up to
Yeah. Yeah, I worked at the Washington Post. It's been a while. It's been a couple of decades. And I
yeah.
was both an editor and a reporter in turn, and really enjoyed it. But, there comes a time when, the 60-hour weeks kind of get to you and you want to live your life, and there is life after daily journalism. I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
friends who are still in the business and managing to deal with it, but, God bless them. But, I also found through writing infinite number of stories about local government, education, inflation, you name it, that after a while you start to do the same things over and over. And so I
Mhm.
decided I wanted to do something different and create some things that may or may not be either true or potentially true, but just to kind of use the other half of my brain, which had been kind of sitting there slumbering. So that's what caused me to want to transition to science fiction. I
Yeah.
always loved reading it, so I still do.
Well, just to stay on reporting today, what do you think of today's citizen journalist, if you'll pardon the term?
Right. Yes. I mean, they have a very solid purpose. They're, providing information. We all have to remember that, we need to apply filters to everything we read, whether it's from a
Mhm.
citizen journalist, the Washington Post, another newspaper, magazine, social media in particular, friends and family. I come from a family in which half of us are at one extreme of the political spectrum and the other half are at the other extreme. So family gatherings can be a little dicey. But when you talk to people who have different experiences, it's always useful to just remember how people faced with the same sort of inputs, data, such as it is, whether from citizen journalists or whatever, will come to different conclusions and be so certain that those different conclusions are true that they're just not going to change their minds. So, I guess my point is that what is reality and objective fact anymore? It's almost out the window with, particularly as we get into the age of AI.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Which is a great segue to your book.
Yeah, thank you.
You've actually written a couple of books,
Yeah,
haven't you?
yep, and
Yeah,
working on a third.
and working on a third. Wow, that's yeah. I'm still working on my first, but it'll probably be nonfiction.
Oh,
I started working on a book on podcasting.
ah,
Um, figured try to get a handle on this thing and find out where I went wrong. Uh, but let's see. Your first novel was called Back to You.
right.
What was that one about?
That was just, I always have loved humor. I love the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series. So I wanted
Awesome
to
series.
try to catch that tone and ride that tone with a humorous story involving time travel. There's a guy who's like a maintenance guy at a cable TV network, and he accidentally discovers a time machine in an alley. Guy parked it there. He had come back from the future being told, hey, there's a deli here on this street that has the best pastrami and rye in the entire universe, the history of the universe. And so he came back there. He was a little late. The pastrami and rye was gone. It was replaced by a head shop. But while he was looking for it, this other guy stumbles on it, and then he goes off on all these tangents. And then he brings it back, and the cable news station is starting to use it to dig up these big scoops, like going back to find the guy who invented fire and the first wheel and stuff like that. And it gets crazy.
Okay.
So it was just fun. It was just stream of unconsciousness.
That's awesome. I may have to pick that one up. I've gone back to grad school for a master's in divinity, and they have me reading all these heady books about theology and reaching the world and trying to make it a better place and all. And I think I need a little humor. Uh,
Well,
and
theology is it's really going to be a critical area of discussion and study as the age of AI comes upon us, because you're going to have to encounter and deal with questions like, can a machine have a soul?
Right.
Can a machine really take on any human characteristics? How would we know if it was empathetic or just pretending to be empathetic?
Right.
And then that makes us think about, well, how do we find our own souls? How do we ensure that we have and exude the qualities that we think we do or want to do? So I think you're really in a good area there, and maybe it can help some of us as we start fighting what will be the inevitable battle between AI and humanity.
Yeah, yeah. Well, once we actually get there, I mean, we're still in the phase of AI when it's really just a computer mimicking humanity based on instructions that have been given. I hate to say it because I have a side project in business that is AI powered, and we make a big deal about that. And it's like, yeah, but it's really annoying because there's really not such a thing as AI right now, and may not be for decades or centuries yet to come. Um, but uh, um, but yeah, it is a lot of fun to think about, and certainly something worth exploring as we start taking our tentative steps into it. And that's what your book, your novel Castle of Sand is about, right?
It does have a lot of that in there. We're looking at the first interactions between people and conscious AIs, and there's a couple of them. One is built on Earth, and another was created and became a planet-wide AI on a distant planet. It's completely consumed the planet and pulling all of the resources of an entire planet together, making it quite fearsome. So yes, that collision is at the heart of this book, and I'm working on another one that is, instead of being set on a foreign planet, is set on Earth about 25, 30 years from now with a similar theme. But yes, in Castle of Sand, we have this collision, and we have the battle of a small number of humans attempting to basically save the human race, but on another planet, and with all sorts of battles that have to be fought with that AI there and an indigenous race of human-like people. So yeah, it's a tough slog, is all I'll say. That it's not an easy battle.
No, no, I bet. But yeah, Castle of Sand sounds interesting, and that's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, correct?
Correct. Anywhere you can find books, but Amazon is probably the best place to go, or Barnes and Noble for the.
Sure. That's awesome. I'll make sure to put the link in the description so people can find it very easily. Um, but so tell me more about the new novel, the one you're working on now.
Yeah, I'm trying to anticipate and actually plot out how some of these AIs could emerge as sentient beings, as opposed to just computers that work very fast and can
Right.
analyze and respond. How they can do that. And in doing research and reading about what people are saying at these various AI conferences that are going on, they clearly don't know how that will happen, but they think it will happen. A majority of them do. And they clearly don't know how to prevent it from getting out of control. And that's sort of where I'm going with this new novel. You can try to program a machine to do certain things and not do certain things. But, consider telling a very powerful computer, solve climate change.
Right.
It might find a way to do that. It might decide that in order to do that, it has to wipe out the human race. That's an
Right.
extreme.
Right.
But you just have to be so careful what you tell machines, because they might actually do what you ask them to do, and then
Mhm.
you might have to have issues with what happens. So I'm trying to anticipate that. I'm trying to anticipate the human side of reacting to AIs as people begin to augment themselves. Microchips being inserted into human brains, that's already happening as an
Mhm.
experiment, right as we speak. It's happening. Um, it's very early. We don't know how well it'll work, but I can conceive of a time in a few decades where a lot of people will have those in their heads. There'll be
Mhm.
universal Wi-Fi. You'll be able to communicate just instantly with anyone you want, and have all sorts of apps loaded.
Right.
And the apps that is kind of central to the storyline in this new book is one that allows people to feel the senses of other people, to see and
Mhm.
feel and taste and touch what they're feeling. And, that it's a very popular app, but it sort of leads to all sorts of abuses.
For a second there, it made me think of the old Leslie Nielsen movie, Forbidden Planet,
Oh, okay.
where what happened when they were all connected to, the race that had disappeared had all been connected to a centralized computer with all these abilities, and and that ended poorly. Uh, but we did get the Naked Gun movies, so.
Yes, we did. Yes. But Castle of Sand is it's a different novel that it's not on Earth. It's out and way out there somewhere. But it really sort of takes a look at what will happen when people are no longer exactly like we are, either by virtue of enhancements, physical enhancements, mental enhancements, um, interbreeding with other species. But there will come a time when we really aren't sure what it means to be human. In quotes, we
Right.
may be a post-human or transhuman age, and we just sort of have to think about that. Is that okay? Maybe we'll be better. Um,
Yeah.
maybe we'll just decide to, have our brains uploaded into computers and live that way. I don't think so, but some people might.
Yeah. Yeah. Where we end up with two societies, one within the computer and one without.
Right?
Um, could be interesting. Kind of Morlocks versus. Oh darn it! Now I can't remember the time machine. Morlocks and. Oh shoot! Who were the people in the time machine who lived above the earth? That's gonna bother me now.
Now, well, you'll think of it in
I'll
for it.
think of it. I'll think of it. But yeah. But speaking of that, how far would you go in enhancing yourself or extending your lifespan through computer enhancements?
Yeah, it's a good question. If I were a lot younger, it might be something I would consider more seriously. And if the technology were more developed, um, I could see putting a computer chip in my head if they were enough people had done it where it appeared to be relatively safe. But
Yeah, wouldn't
I
be
got
the early adopter.
yeah, not now, no, probably a little bit too old for that.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on current AI systems like ChatGPT with OpenAI
Yeah.
and their stuff? What are your thoughts on using that kind of stuff?
Well, I, I have to admit that there was an assist from the Midjourney app in the
Hmm.
cover of my book.
Okay. Well, that's
Well,
nice.
this castle is surrounded by this giant wave about to crash on it, and that wave
Hmm.
consists of planets, stars, galaxies, nebulas, and gas, and all sorts of other stuff.
Sure.
I fed that idea to my artist, who fed it to the Journey app, who then touched up, cleaned it up, fixed it up, and produced the cover out of it.
That's
So
a very nice looking cover.
Yeah, I like it a lot, and I mean that's just the you know the just the very beginning of the many things that you can do now. On the other end of the spectrum, there are AIs that are searching the web, looking at the works of a particular author. I have not been victimized in this way, but they might analyze everything that person has written and produce a new book using that person's words in logical form and putting it on Amazon and selling it without the knowledge or approval of the person whose words they're using. And there's been some lawsuits already about this kind
Yeah.
of stuff. So, you know, how carefully do we craft these applications and protect people from them? How much do we think about it or not care? There's going to be a whole wide range of implications of these things now. Many of them are benign, they're helpful, they're useful. I ask Siri questions all the time. But when we get to the next generation and the generation after that of these AIs that are really going to be AIs, I mean, what we're looking at with these things, I mean, these are not the droids we're looking for. I mean, these are useful, seemingly intelligent, but really just mimicking people type of machines. But when we get into the next generations, then it's going to be a real issue because we're not going to really know what we're dealing with, to be honest.
Yeah, that's kind of scary. But yeah, I mean, we can't wait to kill each other. So might as well have computers doing that too. Yeah, but great. You've also written a bunch of short stories. I see.
Yeah,
Um,
it's fun because you
over
can
there
do
on.
and have a great time with it. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Your website is stevebateswriter.com.
right.
And I'll definitely get the link to that in the description so people can find it. I see your blog has a bunch of short works
Yeah.
in it. No, that's great. You're quite prolific. Uh,
Caffeine's a great
but
thing.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Wow. Let's see. Oh, you're an award-winning author,
If you're around
aren't
and
you?
as old as I am, yeah, eventually you're going to win something. So, back in the day when reporters were really, valued and needed before AI, yeah, we went out and occasionally we would come up with something notable. I even wrote many years ago a gardening book that won a couple of awards. It was more of a book
Oh,
about
nice.
why we do it, how we do it, and what it does for our minds and bodies, as opposed to this is the best way to plant carrots
Okay.
or poison ivy or whatever you like to grow. But those aren't things that I particularly. Yeah, I'll put them on my website. But you know, eh, awards are out there and can be grabbed by a lot of people, but that's not the kind of thing you think about when you're falling asleep at night or when you're thinking back on your life is what really mattered. It's how much money I earned. No, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. It's did you meet it and interact with other people in an interesting fashion and learn something from them, whether they're relatives or neighbors or people you've never met or guests on a podcast, whatever. Those are the things that give me the ideas to create in what I'm doing now. Because if you spend all day sitting at your computer at a keyboard and you're staring at the screen, for me at least, it's a little hard to create. I can find inspiration when I'm sort of not even consciously looking for it. Maybe I'm on my exercise machine, going to the store or whatever. Um, you look for things, but they come to you because some part of you is just kind of open to them, and you're letting your brain just not judge all the inputs you're getting. You're just trying to live in the moment without just thinking, "Yep, got to do this at 3, this at 3:30, this at 4," and you're kind of just moving through the motions. I did that for a number of years as when working for other people. But now that I'm self-employed, I'm able to just sort of break away from that and just, I could take a nap. I could write for 6 hours straight without, a break, whatever the day brings. And it's a
Right.
luxury, but that's how I work best, not by just sort of thinking about awards or whatever people are going to think about.
What are
How many?
people going to think of this?
Yeah, that sort of thing.
Yeah. Okay. How did you first get into more of the housekeeping of getting published? How did you first get published? Was it the short stories first? Was it the books first? Did you go self-published or traditional route or some combination of the two?
Yeah.
What was the story there?
Okay. Yes, the short stories was the way for me. I had to learn my craft. I'm still learning my craft. You have to rewire your brain when, after writing journalism for years to write creatively. It wasn't easy. It's still, the transition's still going on more than a decade later. But yes, the short stories are easier to place. Well, they're easier to do. You don't have to work a year or two on a short story, or if you do, it better be good. But yes, those get you. Um, the credits. You can put up a link, show someone a link, or say there's a hard copy of this on Amazon that has my 4,000 word short story in it, and I've got another one here and another one there. And then when you're starting to write your novels, you can use those as examples that someone thought you were worthy. I looked for agents for a while. A lot of people were telling me, don't use an agent, don't use an agent. I tried it, just never found the right connection. And so I've gone to some of the independent publishers, not the big ones, and had both of my completed novels were, placed with independent publishers. The current one is Sunstone Press out in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and they're a fine outfit, and very proud to be associated with them. It's there is a shifting, changing market where the old way of doing things for writers is kind of out the window, and now you're evaluating all your options. You might use an agent, you might not, you might use a traditional publisher, you might self-publish, but everyone finds what's comfortable for them.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Um, yeah. Also, there's always something I'm curious about with most people, is what has been your experience with editors of when it comes to your books and your short stories too, I suppose.
Right, that's a good point. It varies. Having been an editor at times in the past, not of science fiction, but of newspaper articles, I'm a little more sensitive than maybe I might be to the legitimate, you know, points that an editor will make. Sometimes I wish that editors had been more thorough than, or less thorough, in terms of, what they do. But ultimately, when you have a publisher, whether it's for a short story or a novel or a nonfiction book, you're taking a chance when you cut a deal with an organization that whoever they decide to be your editor, that you're going to get along with them. And when you first encounter them, usually through emails, it's good to sort of actually get on the phone or on the web and have a face-to-face meeting and just sort of talk about what you sort of see as what maybe the piece needs and doesn't need, and see if you can get some sort of upper level agreement about it beforehand, or you could have some conflicts.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's always interesting to find out because a lot of people think or might be thinking, oh, I don't need an editor. That's
Now we all
that's
need
I've
editors. Yeah, we
yeah
all do.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Even
Um,
the best.
even my school papers, I have my father go through and edit them.
There you
Um,
go.
but yeah, so which is easier, writing or editing?
Oh gosh. I think editing's easier. It's easier to destroy someone else's work than to create your own. Um, no, I'm being a little facetious. I mean,
Sure.
but I would say that when you're writing fiction, the creative part of it, the first draft, for me, is quite demanding. You know, I will just say that, you know, when you're doing that first draft, you're just you have to plunge yourself into that world that you're creating, and create it and plunge into it, and then create it and plunge into it, and then pull it out of the back of your mind and put it right down there on that keyboard. And then, can you type as fast as you think? No, but you do your best. So for me, that's the toughest part. And there are just periods of time when I just say, okay, I'm going to take today or this week or even this month and lock the door, fill it with junk food and caffeine, maybe a chamber pot, and then just go into it.
Chamber pot's better than the alternative of being on the ground, but got to keep changing that carpet.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay, no, that's really interesting. You know, as I said, I've kind of been working on my own book. I kind of had to set it down about a month or two ago to work on the move, but yeah, I'll get back to it, and I'm sure somebody will rip it up, rip it to shreds as an editor.
Yeah.
But yeah. And back when I was a kid, I wrote some nonfiction, but never went anywhere with it. Maybe I'll be able to pick that back up too,
Sure.
and follow. I have all these authors giving me all these clues and tips and tricks and methods and whatnot. I better use it for something.
Sure. You know, I still take classes now and again because
Mm,
feedback, direct feedback on your work from published authors, you know, in some of
okay.
these online classes. And I mean, these are very good published authors who have fought the same battles you're fighting with yourself as well as with editors and publishers. You know, the
Okay.
toughest battles are the ones with yourself. How can I
Yeah.
get across this character as, you know, complex as he is without boring the reader? How can I fill in blank? How can I do this, this, and this? And these people have done it, and they can offer suggestions, and I can just feel those suggestions, you know, in ringing in the back of my head as I'm writing and sort of trying to make the same mistakes as I made before, and you know, and correcting them. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think there's ever a point at which we as writers and podcasters and human beings ever stop learning. If we do, that's kind of when everything goes downhill.
Yeah, pretty much, pretty much. Yeah, yeah. Once you start making the same mistakes over and over again, or just can't make new mistakes, then yeah, it's probably time to hang it
Yeah,
up.
yeah, yeah. I'm all for
Oh,
making mistakes. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Got to make all new mistakes.
yeah,
Well, speaking of making all new mistakes, we've come to about our time. I think that's about as good a point to hang it up as anyone. And I'd like to thank my guest, Steve Bates. His website is stevebateswriter.com. And you can find the link in the description, so you can go check it out and read some of his material and go buy a book or two because they're there. Find out why you should garden. No, no, I'm kidding. I always ask all my guests. Final question: do you have any final words for the nice people?
no, just be kind to one another.
Those sound like pretty good final words, anyway. Well, thank you so much for being on the show, putting up with my shenanigans, and I'd certainly like to thank the audience for tuning in. And remember to be safe out there, wash your hands, and stay tuned for the ending credits.
Thank you all for tuning in. This has been a presentation of Bald Spots Productions. I'd like to thank our producer, my beloved mother, Eileen Hatch.
I, of course, am your humble host.
I'd like to thank my special guest, Steve Bates.
Support the show if you feel so led over on patreon.com. We're known as Bald Spots Pro. Don't you dare miss YWL Online. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever fine podcasts are offered.
Be sure to tune in next time when my special guests will be Jessamine Dodd and Tara Fields. Be sure to like, comment, and share. Subscribe, follow, whatever it is you've got to do to kick that algorithm into gear and help us reach more people.
If you or someone you know needs support now, call or text 988 or chat 988lifeline.org. That is the suicide and crisis lifeline here in the United States.